Felt so good, man. It's the best time I've had since week 1 of last year. There's nothing like that feeling, you know. Glad to do it with this group of guys. They made it easy for me. So it was a lot of fun.
That's Gardner Minshew getting the victory yesterday. There he is, hugging his dad. He's giving him the Kirk Cousins. You like that shove, like Cousins and Zimmer from earlier this year. And he mentioned week 1, Mike, because that's the last time Gardner Minshew got a win as a starter. The Jaguars won their first game over the Colts in week 1 of the 2020 season, then fell apart after that, and Minshew was injured and benched and whatever. And I'm going to start there. I'm going to call an audible. I'm going to take the first superlative this week. We talked about this during the break, so he knows it's coming. My superlative is, how in the hell was he only worth a 6th-round pick award? Because I'm still astounded that Gardner Minshew, who had 37 touchdown passes and 11 interceptions in his first 2 NFL seasons, who has shown grit and toughness and intangibles. And, you know, he was kind of a fan favorite as a rookie. Last year, it all fell apart. When the team's bad, it's going to fall apart. But the Jaguars, and it was kind of a clumsy effort by Urban Meyer and company to create this notion there was actually a quarterback controversy in Jacksonville. And I think they were always trying to set up some trade value for Gardner Minshew. I still was amazed that they only got a 6th-round pick for Gardner Minshew when, you know, everybody needs a good backup quarterback. And look at what happens for the Eagles. You got a backup quarterback that you can rely on. So Jalen Hurts can't play, and you come in and you get a win that keeps you alive in the playoff race, Mike. And without Gardner Minshew, they would have still had Joe Flacco. And I'm not saying Joe Flacco wouldn't have won the game. I don't know. But I feel better about Gardner Minshew right now than Joe Flacco. I felt better about him before the season began. And I am astounded that the Eagles were able to steal him for a 6th-round pick.
Listen, that whole thing, like you said, with Urban and trying to say it was a quarterback competition, if they were doing that to try and up his value, it was still a 6th-round pick. It was very, very weird. Such a big Gardner Minshew fan. You know, there are the high draft picks that are expected to be great players, and then there are the lower draft picks, obviously, where the expectation isn't there. When they start to do something, you just get behind them. And then everybody just loved his personality so much. I mean, I'm just such a fan, such a great relationship with him and his family as well. It's just a very, very, very cool, humanizing thing to see, when a lot of times with pro athletes, we look at them as robots at times to go out and perform. So that's a very good one. My first superlative is going to go, and I know I've done it before, again, to Jonathan Taylor and what he just continues to do. He's the only player over 1,000 yards this year and has over 1,300 yards, goes 32 carries for 143 yards and a couple of touchdowns in the 31-0 win for the Colts. I just like him handling the ball as much as he does. You know, again, as you see right there, last 10 games, he's averaging 23 touches a game. The guy can handle it. And a lot of times we talk about in this day and age where you have 2 running backs, so one guy isn't taking all the touches and taking all the hits. Well, right now, that's what Taylor is doing, but he is doing it so well to the tune of playing at an MVP level in this league for a team right now that's on the outside of the playoffs, you know, looking in. We'll see, as we talked about, this can change week to week. But boy, what he is doing is just nothing short of unbelievably impressive.
It really is. And look, I don't think his final numbers are going to be enough that he's in the MVP conversation. And the Colts obviously would have to make it to the playoffs, maybe even have to win the division, which isn't out of the question right now because we never know what the Titans are going to do down the final 5 weeks of the season. But you know, I think it's going to be the quarterback of the 1 seed in the NFC. But if Jonathan Taylor can really kind of go off down the stretch like Adrian Peterson did down the stretch in 2012, I think the door's open because there really isn't an AFC guy that screams out MVP right now, quarterback or any other position. My next one is the new Bad News Dump Award. And just as they've been trying for years to come up with new places in pizza to stuff the cheese, the NFL has found a new place to bury the bad news. And I had never thought about this before until yesterday. But what better place to fire your offensive coordinator than during your bye week, during the 1 o'clock games of your bye week, as the games are being played? the statement comes from the Panthers that they have parted ways with offensive coordinator Joe Brady. Now, so much for the conventional wisdom that the best time to make that kind of a change when you're in a bye is the Monday after the last game you play before you have 13 days to, get the next guy up to speed. There's got to be a hell of a story behind this one, Mike, for it to have come to a head when it did, how it did. And I got in touch with somebody very much in the know in the NFL, finger on the pulse of everything. And I was like, wow, can you believe this Joe Brady thing? And the response was 3 words: head coach next. So keep an eye on what happens in Carolina with Matt Rule. Despite all the money they paid him coming in and the fact that they've had some highs, more lows than highs, David Tepper, the owner of that team, I think is going to be very impatient. And what happened yesterday, and it was so unconventional, and again, it's a new place to use it as a case study going forward, NFL teams. It's a great play because nobody noticed, nobody cared. But something's going on in Carolina, Mike, and it's worth paying attention to.
Boy, wasn't Joe Brady, he was the hot name, wasn't he, with Burrow and LSU and what they did with the title there, and then, coming to the NFL as an assistant. He was like the next head coach getting groomed, right, to be the OC in the NFL and then take over somewhere. And then it's a bottom line, like you said, news dump. Joe Brady fired. Everyone like, what? Are you kidding me? That this was the hottest, hot guy out there, and obviously no more. Obviously he's going to find work somewhere. I don't think there's going to be any doubt about that. But as you said, to keep an eye on that Carolina situation, going to be really interesting. My next one, I'm going to, listen, these weren't flashy numbers, but for a team that's really hanging in there, the Washington football team, Antonio Gibson, what he did in the backfield. McKissick was out, so again, another kind of a 2-back situation going there. So it's all on Gibson. 23 carries, again, just under 90 yards, nothing great. 5 catches, 23 yards. My point is, he gets 28 touches in this game for a guy that's used to splitting time a little bit. They get the 17-15 win over the Raiders. Heineke plays another nice game. This team is doing just enough to keep themselves right in this hunt. And they still get Dallas twice. And at times you have to wonder which Dallas team are they going to get, when they play the Cowboys. But again, these aren't flashy numbers, but I want to give a little love to just a guy who was put in a situation. You're going to be the main guy out there. 28 touches later, he grinds out a little over 100 yards of total offense, and this team grinds out a win.
Yeah, amazing what they are doing. And we've talked a couple of times over the past week about Washington's path to the playoffs. Unlike the teams that we see clinging to wild card berths and in the hunt in the NFC, Washington, keep this in mind, has 2 paths to the postseason because they can get one of the wild cards and they still can pick off the Cowboys as the champions of the division. So they got 2 potential tickets to the party, 2 different ways to get to where they want to be. And they got the Cowboys coming up this weekend. They still play them twice. They sweep them, they finish in a tie, they win the division. Next one for me, this is, can he be the MVP despite missing 3 for Kyler Murray? Now, I firmly believe the quarterback of the number 1 seed in the NFC is going to be the MVP, barring something like Jonathan Taylor going bonkos in the final 5 games. But if the Cardinals continue, and it's amazing, as good as they are, we're just kind of like, yeah, okay. Get back to us when they do something significant. Well, 10-2 is significant in this crazy upside-down year. And, Mike, 7 road wins, all by double digits. If they beat the Lions by double digits, they will be the first team in NFL history with 8 road wins of double digits. Unbelievable. And they can push it to 9 if they would somehow beat the Cowboys by double digits, although that's probably less likely. It is amazing what they're doing, and it's amazing what Kyler Murray brings to the table. And I know they were 2-1 without him. I know that undermines his value. When he's on the field, there's a swagger, there's a confidence, there's just the Cardinals are a different team with Kyler Murray, and they are so hard to stop. And what a godsend James Conner has been for that team, the guy the Steelers didn't want anymore. They've just made it work. And when he rolls out, look at when they got no chance. When he does that fake handoff and rolls to the right, they got no chance. Even though they know it's coming, nobody can stop it, Mike.
Boy, I tell you what he did. And like I know you said they went 2-1 without him. That doesn't diminish his value. I guess the guys in that locker room are like, well, you know what that means? We have a pretty damn good team. We have a good backup quarterback. We have a good defense. We have a good running game. Connor's gotten a nice breath of fresh air out in Arizona. Zach Ertz as well. Hell of a target for Kyler Murray along with Hopkins. Him and Murray and Hopkins back finally this week. I mean, this is about as complete a team as there is in the NFL, and they're showing it. It's really impressive what they're doing, and whether they keep doing it or not, we'll see. But right now, at least they've shown they've been one of the most consistent teams, if not the most consistent team in the NFL. My last one, and I'm going to keep harping on this guy just because I'm so curious what's going to happen to him next year, is Tua. They get another win yesterday. He goes 30 of 41 for 244 and 2 more touchdowns. He's completing 70% of his passes. Now, he's not throwing for a ton of yards, but he's being really efficient. Doesn't throw for a ton of touchdowns either, but he's being efficient. And I just keep wondering what's going to happen here. Are they going to go, if they don't have the Deshaun Watson trade in the offseason, are they just going to flat out look for another quarterback? Tua, we keep talking about this, Mike. All he can do is control what he can control, but he's averaging about 225 yards a game. Again, not a ton of yards, but he is completing a ball at a high efficient rating. It's shorter passes, which I understand every now and then he'll certainly put it up over the top. But I just keep wondering, what Miami Dolphin fans think of who do we go get next? This next crop of quarterbacks coming out of to the NFL from college. Listen, there's no one we're really just so buzzed about. They're saying, wow, that's a can't misser. So I just keep wondering about Tua and his future with the Miami Dolphins. I still probably think it's not going to be there, but he just keeps being efficient enough to get them some wins.
He's very polarizing among the Dolphins fan base and beyond. There's that group that we've come to call Tuanon that is all in on Tua and that is irrational in their praise. And you know what? He's backing them up. And, Mike, the best thing that happened to that team this year was the passage of the trade deadline, because that was the moment where Stephen Ross fades into the shrubs like Homer Simpson. There's no reason for Stephen Ross to try to do anything or say anything at that point. It's done because he wanted Deshaun Watson. Make no mistake about it. He wanted Deshaun Watson. And when it didn't happen, that's when the weight kind of lifted off of the franchise. It lifted off of Tua, who was very distracted by all of this talk. At that point, there was nothing he could do other than take advantage of the rest of the season to convince Stephen Ross and anyone else that they don't need Deshaun Watson. They got Deshaun Watson. They got Tua, who's living up to his potential. They haven't lost a game since they were 1-7, and they've now won 5 in a row since the trade deadline came and went. I don't think that's a coincidence. Wait, they're 6-7. They've won 5 in a row, and they're 6-7. Are they 6-7? Are they 6-7? They are 6-7. They have their bye week coming up, and then they have one more game. They're going to be 7-7, I believe, because they play the Jets. They're going to be 7-7 going to. They are 6-7. They're going to be 7-7 going to New Orleans on Monday night, December 27th, and maybe that night, given where the Saints currently are, the Dolphins bust through to 8-7, and then they become one of those teams we have to figure out where they fit in the playoff field, Mike.
Hey, listen, never say never. When you're on a roll like this, I can't tell you how much the confidence builds in your locker room that you can get it done, that when things don't look good, they pull themselves out of it, or they've gotten themselves a lead and been able to hang on to it. It's amazing. The mental part, I don't think people think enough about it, the mental part of where a team can be when things start to roll their way. And I know Brian Flores, I know he's very well liked down in Miami as well by the players. So it's rolling well. And this year, we've talked about it, you're right. Week to week it changes. You just never know what that graphic's going to look like when we talk about who's in the playoffs or who's just on the outside looking in.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.